Hi, I'm Mrs McTaggart and I'm going to be taking you through one of the practice papers, practice paper B. This is the paper 2. These papers are available on the National 5 Maths website. So our first question is a bit of scientific notation. It tells us that this is the weight of a spider and a hummingbird is 18 times heavier. So the weight of a hummingbird is 18 times that number. So we're just doing 19.06 times 10 to the negative 5 times 18. Now you have a calculator, so remember on your calculator down the bottom row, you should have a button that says times 10 to the power x. That might be a little blank square depending on the model, or you might have a button down the bottom still that says exp. This button acts as your times 10 to the power part. So into your calculator you need to type in 19.06, whichever button you've got, your negative button and then your 5, and then just times by 18. Which gives you, in scientific notation, if your calculator's nice enough for you, it gives you this number here. Okay, if you're struggling and you don't know how to use that button on your calculator, you could always write out the 19.06 part in full. Power minus 5 tells us the decimal point is going to be moving 5 places to the left. So 19.06, if I move that 5 places, 2 places takes it to there. I need to go another 1, 2, 3. So I have got 3 zeros to add. So you could do 0.1231906 times 18 and type it that way into your calculator. And then from there, your calculator might put it into scientific notation for you, or your calculator might give you the answer of 0.0034308, which you then have to put into scientific notation yourself. And a wee reminder of that means the decimal point goes here after the first digit, and the power is how many places you're moving the dot from where it is to where you want it to be, which is minus 3. But if you're happy with the calculator, then that's the easiest way to go with this one. Question 2 is a percentage question, and it's telling us a microwave oven is sold for £150. This price includes VAT at 20%. Find the price of the oven without VAT. So what's happened is we had the price of the oven, so we had our original answer of 100%. They added on 20% and they got the price of 150. So that £150 is the equivalent of 120%. We want the original value. So this is your reverse percentage. Do not, under any circumstances, simply find 20% and take it off. That is not National 5 work. So we do this like a proportion or a ratio question, and you need to get 1% first and then 100%. So your first step is to divide that by 120. So you do 150 divided by 120 and it gives you 1.25. You then multiply that number by 100 because that's what 1% is and we want 100, and it tells you that the original price was £125. Now we can easily check this. 20% of 125 is simply dividing that by 5, which is £25. If you add 25 onto that, it gives you the £150 I gave you. So I always think the nice thing with reverse percentages is you can check them. So either way, your answer was 125 there. Question 3 is our standard deviation. So we want the mean and the standard deviation for this. So the mean is when you do, there's 2 different ways to do it. I just always use the deviation squared model. Rather than the other one. I just think it's a wee bit safer. So you draw your table out like this, you put all your numbers in order, don't bother trying to change them because then you might miss one or accidentally change a number. So I've got 79 and 59 still to put in. So I'm going to move that up. So I've got 79 and 59. Was that right? Yeah. Then what you do is you go and find your mean. So your mean is when you add these all up and divide by 6 because we've got 6 numbers. So this gives us 438. When you divide that by 6, we get an answer of 73. So our mean is 73. If it's not a nice number, please double check it because 9 times out of 10 it should be a nice number. If it's a decimal, I would always check it first because if you've got a messy table, it's not nice. Right, you should never have to round your mean though. Right, from there, so the middle column is each of the numbers on the left take away 73. So for example, the first one is 66, take away 73. Now, if you want to be extra careful, use your calculator because you don't want to make mistakes here. So the first number is minus 7. 70 minus 73 is minus 3. 89 minus 73 is 16. That gives you 2. 79 take away that is 6. And 59 take away 73 is 14. What you then do in the end column is square all these numbers. So that gives you 49, 9, 256, 4, 36 and 196. We then add all those up. And again, use your calculator, and it gives us 550. Now, the formula for this one is on your formula sheet, and it says this. So, the sigma symbol means the sum of, so it means the total of this column here, which is this number. So that number goes on the top of your formula. N is 6 because you've got 6 numbers in your list, so 6 take away 1 is 5. So we've got the square root of 550 divided by 5, which is the square root of 110, and it gives us 10.49. They haven't mentioned decimal places, so I'm just going to do it to 2 decimal places. So that is your answer to 2 decimal places. Now, I'm just going to remind myself what the question was about. The question was telling us the price of milk in 6 different supermarkets. So this was the mean and standard deviation for milk in supermarkets. We're then going to look at local shops. So I'm just going to write these numbers out again a bit below so it's a bit clearer. So this is what we have to compare. I'm going to take the stance of local because it gave us that second. Now you notice the mean prices are the same. So my first statement is going to be about the average price of milk. So the average price of milk is the same in each shop. So the average price of milk is the same in both types of shops. Excuse my writing here. But in local shops have got a higher standard deviation. So the prices in local shops, because the standard deviation is higher, the prices are more varied. Now think about that. Supermarkets will have the same price for an item throughout all their stores, no matter where they are. Your corner shops are owned by all these different little independent companies. You could have a local Tesco, you could have a local Cost Cutters, all these different shops. They can charge what they want. So their prices for little corner shops will be more varied because their prices aren't controlled. And also, if you're going to your local shop, you'll pay whatever you want, whatever you can for that item. So prices in milk is the same in both types of shops. The prices in local shops are more varied. Okay, our next question is talking about a pendulum that swings, and that pendulum makes this lovely kind of sector shape. It says the length of the pendulum is 20, so that is your radius is 20. And it tells us that the arc is 28.6. We want to know the angle at the centre. So, because they've told us the arc, we're going to start with the formula for arc. So I'm just going to move this down a little bit. Oops. Right, formula for arc is arc equals your angle over 360. Arc is circumference, so it's times pi d, okay? That gives us a bit more room. Now, there's different ways to go with this, but I'm going to put in what we know first of all. We know the arc was 28.6. We don't know x, but we do know that the diameter was, well, the radius was 20, so that makes the diameter 40. So that would be your first mark there, just for substituting into the formula. From there, we're going to change everything because our target is to get x on its own. So we need to move everything else around from that. So x is being divided by 360, so we do the opposite of divide by 360. And we times by 360. And that's undone that bit. Opposite of times by pi is divide by pi. Opposite times by 40 is divide by 40. So we can move them together as a times pi, we can move them as a pi times 40 and divide by them. And then go to your calculator. If you've got the fraction button that does this, simply push that and then type that in as it appears. And that gives us, if you type it in correctly, it gives you an answer of 81.93. degrees. You could round that to 82 degrees if you wished as well. And that kind of matched the picture. It wasn't quite a right angle. If you got something of 100 odd, I'd be querying it because it is just under 90 going by the picture of the sector. Now, there is other ways to go from that. You could alternatively, at this stage here, you could work out what pi times 40 divided by 360 is, and then do 28.6 divided by that number. But we've taught change of subject this way in our class, so that's the way we do it. We do the opposite of every single thing on the right-hand side. Okay, our next question is wanting the volume of this container. So what we have is, hopefully you can see from this diagram here that we started with a big cone and we've cut off that little cone there. So our method is big cone, take away small cone. Okay, and the formula for a cone is 1/3 pi r squared h. So if we do the big cone first of all, the big cone, I'm going to just squeeze it down the side here. The big cone would be 1/3 times pi times, now your diameter is 16, so your radius is 8 squared, and the height of the full thing was 32. So that is a big cone. So that gives you an answer of 2144, and I'll do it to 2 decimal places at this point. The small cone would be 1/3 times pi times, now your diameter now is 10, so your radius is 5, and your height, your height is this bit here. Now, it was 32 take away 12, so the height of this bit here must be 20. Can you see that okay? So this bit from here to here was 12. 12 plus 20 makes 32. So your height is 20, and that will catch people out. So the volume of that one is 523.60 to 2 decimal places. So the volume of the full thing, remember we said it was big take away small. So you do the 2000 number, take away the 500 number, and you get 1621.06. Now normally I would write down that what numbers I'm taking away, but it's also acceptable just to write somewhere that you're doing big take away small. Now that's my answer, but they wanted it to 1 sig fig. Volume quite often wants 1 sig fig. So that means you're keeping the 1 at the front, which becomes a 2. So your answer is 2000 centimetres cubed for that one. Please remember, copy your formula correctly from the formula sheet, okay? Our next question is a trinomial equal to 0, and it says 1 decimal place. This is our clue that it is a quadratic formula. So it's minus b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac. Please remember that is all in your formula sheet, so don't copy it down wrongly. A is the first number, which is 2. B is the second number, which is 3. C is the end, which is minus 1. And I always say work out 4ac while you're there, which is 4 times 2 times negative 1, which gives you negative 8. And it just makes your substitution a bit nicer. So subbing in, minus b is the opposite of whatever you've said here. So that's minus 3. Plus or minus, b squared is 3 squared, which is 9. Take away, and we said 4ac was minus 8. And 2 times a is 2 times 2, which is 4. Now, the reason I do the 4ac at the side is because it makes you see that lovely double negative really nicely. So 9 minus minus 8 really becomes 9 plus 8. And then you tidy up the discriminant part, the square root, which is 17 all over 4. So you get a mark for your substitution line, and you get a mark for that line. Then you split it into 2 sums. So you've got minus 3 plus the root of 17. And you've got minus 3 minus the root of 17 all over 4. And you can either use the fancy fraction button on your calculator, or if you're not doing that, you make sure you press equals after typing in that top line. Otherwise, your calculator will do the 17 divided by 4 first of all. So remember, it's the whole top line and then divide by 4. So the first one to 1 decimal place is 0.280. So that gives you 0.3. The second one, when you do that calculation, gives you minus 1.780. So to 1 decimal place, that is minus 1.8. Just watch your rounding, because the final mark is for the rounding at the end there. Okay? Question 7, without even reading it, I recognise that as my tunnel tanker question. It's your Pythagoras inside a circle. It wants the depth of the oil. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to pull out this triangle. You get a mark just for drawing the right angle triangle correctly. So your slope is 2.5. We've split this 3 metres into 1.5. Now they want the depth. The only thing I can find right now is x on my right angle triangle. So that's what I'm going to go do. X is a short side, so you do 2.5 squared minus 1.5 squared. This gives us 4. And the square root of 4 we know is 2. So this means that this wee bit here is 2. Now, the full radius is 2.5, so from 0, let me just draw it again, to the bottom of the circle is 2.5. I know that here is 2, so what is this wee bit here? So that must be 0.5. So the depth is 2.5 take away 2, which equals 0.5 metres. Remember, you've only got 3 scenarios, one where you add it to the radius, one where you take it off the radius, which is this one, and one where you double your answer, which is if you're asked for the PQ. So that's that one. You should recognise that straight off. Tunnel tanker, Pythagoras question. Number 8 is our percentage. Now, it's unusual because this is usually our number 1, and there's an awful lot to this one. We've got 2 different scenarios. We've got a population of the first town, which is increasing, and we've got the population of the second town, which is decreasing. So this is where we really need to do this is where it really pays off to know the quick method. So we're going to take new town and old town separately. And we're going to work out new town increasing each year by 5%. If you increase by 5%, that's really 105%. So we're using 1.05 times 50,000. For the second town, we are decreasing by 20, so that's 100 take away 20, so we're using 80%. So we're doing 0.8 times 108,000. Now we need to just keep doing this sum until we find that Newtown takes over. Okay, so our first year, if we do those 2 sums, gives us 52500, and the other town gives us 86400. So it's not year 1. So we do the same again. Now you literally can just do your answer times 1.05 on your calculator. Gives you 55125. On the other town, you can just do your answer times 0.8, which will give you 69,120. So this was year 1, this was year 2. Getting a bit closer. Let's do our answer here times 1.05, which gives you 57881.25. And this one gives you, for your third year, if you times your answer by 0.8 again, it gives you 55296. So you'll notice on year 3, 55,000 is suddenly less than the 57,000, so it will take 3 years for your conclusion for that one. Okay, so it'll take 3 years for Newtown to overtake Old Town. That's a lengthy one, not asked one for a long time. Question 9 is a trigonometry question. A TV signal is sent from the transmitter to your satellite, and it's giving you this information. Now, the first thing to point out, this is not isosceles. I know it does look like it for first guess. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work out that angle up the top. That is 180 take away 75, so that angle up there is 105. Right, it wants us to find the height of the satellite above the ground. So this is what it wants there. Now, if I draw a line down here, that makes 2 right angle triangles. You have an option here. This is your double sine rule question. Option 1 is you can find the left-hand side and call it x, and then get h. Option 2 is you could find the right-hand side, so the SV one, and then get h. So you could find either x or y first, and then use the right angle triangle to get h. I'm just going to go with the left-hand side because I prefer it. So we are using sine rule, so you're going to have x over sine 40 equals your 500 for your distance over sine 105. So that's your first sum. Then we're going to bring the sine 40 up. So you've got 500 times sine 40 all over sine 105. And if you go type that into a calculator, you should get an answer of 332.73. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to redraw this triangle for you to show you what I'm doing. So I'm now using the left-hand side of this, and this is 332.73. Now you could just use SOHCAHTOA and do sine of your angle equals h over 332, but I just teach double sine rule now because it's just so much handier for pupils. So we want h, so it's h over sine 35 equals your length of 332, sorry I've changed that number, all over sine 90. So h is your answer from the first part times sine 35 all over sine 90, which gives you an answer of, now I've used the exact answer that was still left on my calculator, and it gave me 190.85. Now they've not mentioned rounding, so the height of the satellite is 190.85 kilometres. You can one decimal place if you prefer. Okay, so double sine rule. You'll see that question in other scenarios where it's like two people looking at a hot air balloon or a flagpole selected by two wires. What is the height of the items? Really, really common, double sine rule. Right, question 10, we're going to change the subject to P. Some people prefer to write this as the other way around, so I'm just going to do that for you. So our aim, remember, is to get P in its own. So we're going to have to move everything that is around the P. First thing, we move the minus 2t because it's not touching it. So minus 2t goes over to the other side and becomes plus 2t. Then we need to undo the timesing by 3. The opposite of timesing by 3 is dividing by 3. So we divide the other side by 3. Now that was quite a nice one. It had 2 steps. Usually it's got 3. And just leave your answer as that. Question 11 is vectors. We have to state the coordinates of vectors. So we know that E is 5, 3, 1. That means that is along 5, back 3, up 1. If you're not sure of your order, look at your coordinates. It goes along X, back Y, up Z. So follow the alphabet X, Y, Z. Now that should help us get the other one. So it wants the coordinate of G. Now G is in the back corner, so it's not going up. Sorry, I'm going to do F. So F is almost the same as E, but it's just not going up anything. So F is along 5 and back 3. So it is 5, 3, and then it's not up anything because it's lying on the bottom plane, so it's 5, 3, 0. G is on the back, so G is along nothing. It goes back 3, and then it's on the bottom plane, so it doesn't go up anything at all. So that is your 2 coordinates. It then wants the shortest distance between D and C. So that is asking you to do your space diagonals. Now, there's 2 ways to do it. You could use the bottom triangle and find the diagonal of C to G using 5 and 3. So you could get that and then apply that to the vertical triangle DGC. And you know the vertical one is 3 high. This will be what you've just worked out for X, and then DC will be that. So you could do Pythagoras, 3 squared plus 5 squared, get your answer. And then do 3 squared plus your answer, go on again. Or you could just do vectors, right? So the distance is the square root of, so it's to go from C to D, you're going back 5, back 3, up 3. So 5 squared plus 3 squared plus 3 squared. And if you remember that umbrella in a locker question, it was like that as well. So we've got 25 plus 9, which gives you 43. And the square root of 43 is 6.56. Okay, so that's one of your options. I'm just going to prove to you that it works the other way as well, actually. So using the other method, you would say, right, x squared is 3 squared plus 5 squared, which is the square root of 34. And you leave it like that. And then you say, right, well, y squared would have been the square root of 34 squared plus 3 squared. which is 43, and then y is the square root of 43, which is what I got over there. Same answer. Okay, so either space diagonals, split it into two triangles, or you could do it as vectors, length, breadth, height. Square them all, square root it. Okay, question 12 is your all sine tan cos. Again, you may or may not have seen this. It's right at the end of the course for most people. It's just put into context in a fancy way. So it says, find the height of the carriage above the ground after 10 seconds. So you look at your formula here, which letter stands for seconds or time? It is the T. So for part A, we're going to replace T with the number 10. So your height is simply 10 plus 5 sine 10, and you just type that into your calculator. And it gives you 10.86, so 10.8 metres. So the height after 10 seconds is 10.8 metres off the ground. Part B, it says find the two times when the turn of the wheel is 12.5 above the ground. So this time our height equals 12.5. And remember, there will be two times when you're that height. There could be your height going up in the carriage, and then you could be your height when you're coming down in the carriage, and they'll both give you the same height. So we're looking for two answers. So I'm going to replace H with 12.5. I'm just going to put it on the right hand side because that's nicer than what we're used to. So moving the 10 over, you have 5 sine t equals 2.5. Divide by the 5, you have 2.5 divided by 5 is 0.5. Your acute angle is then shift sine of 0.5, which is shift sine of 0.5 is 30. Now our equation was positive. We were looking for positive 12.5, so we are using all in sine. So your all box answer was 30, and your sine one was 180 minus 30, which is 150. So your answer is after 30 seconds and 150 seconds. They are the two times after leaving the ground that the Ferris wheel will be at a height of 12.5 metres. Okay, thanks very much. I hope that's helped.